Hello and welcome back, and that is right. Today we want to do another should you buy for this. This is the Synology BeeStation, the BST150 4T. Catchy name, right? And this is their new super entry-level one-bay NAS solution designed for people that literally just want their own little bit of cloud storage rather than going to the big third-party ones out there. Now, in this video, we're just going to go through the 5 things that I love about this device and the 5 things I do not. And hopefully by the end, you will decide whether you want to get one of these for yourself. But if you want more in-depth, head over to NAScompares, where hopefully our full detailed review, where we go into a lot more detail about this device, is available. But for those of you in a bit of a rush, tick-tock, tick-tock, this video's for you. So let's crack on with number 1. To say this system is straightforward and easy to use and set up for the first time would be an understatement. I have never utilised an easier to set up device. Synology have really focused and refined everything down to the most basic, easy, straightforward setup of one of their solutions I've ever seen. Now, normal Synology NAS solutions, you have to grab it, pop in 1 or 2 hard drives at the very least, connect it to local area network, connect in the power cable, then you have to use Synology Assistant tool to find an NAS on your local area network to the device you are using. Then from there, you have to set the device up, install the latest firmware. From there, log into the system, go into the storage manager. From the storage manager, create a storage pool, go from the storage pool into a Synology volume. Then after you've got your Synology volume there, you can create your shared folders. Then you have to go ahead to install the backup software. You have to go to the application center to download Hyper Backup, perhaps USB backup as well. On top of that, you might want to install Synology Drive in order to allow you to connect to other devices and other client devices and the client tools on the local area network for the other connected users. And then we haven't got into, even if you want to access the NAS remotely, you have to go ahead and create a Synology account. With the Synology account, you have to synchronize with the NAS, give it a name with Synology Quick Connect. Then with Synology Quick Connect, it'll allow the system to be accessed remotely for those connected users and their individual user names. Now compare that to this. I plugged it into the wall, I connected it into my router, I turned it on, I then went on my laptop, went to Beestation /setup, entered the serial number, and then 60 seconds later, I was in. Seriously, it was that straightforward. I cannot stress how much more straightforward it was. Now, there are going to be users out there, techie heads like myself, who are going to argue it's too simplified, I like a custom setup, I don't like utilising online services, I want to keep it. And that all makes perfect sense. But if you don't care about those things, and all you want is a straightforward, easy setup, and also day-to-day utilisation of this, accessing the file manager, having the storage set up, assigning access to up to 8 other users, this thing is a dream for that. It's by far the most straightforward, easy to set up and easy to use Synology I have ever seen. Next up, we got to talk about the old Wonga. This system arriving at an RRP, a recommended retail price of $199, not including tax, shipping and your local e-shop percentage margin there on the top. I say right now, $199 for a pre-populated 4 TB NAS solution is ridiculously good value in 2024. What do I mean by that? Well, this is designed for people that are trying to move away from third-party cloud storage providers. Again, your Google Drive, your Dropbox, your iCloud, all of the users out there that have got data, your photos, your video, or something more important, sitting there on third-party cloud that you're paying every single month, every single year for. Now, if you look at those third-party cloud providers, first and foremost, Google Drive and Dropbox, they charge $7.99 per month for 2 TB of storage. They do a few annual things that they knock off at 10 to 12%. But even at that level, it means, and that's at 2 TB, so if you wanted 4 TB, that would equate to between $160 and $192 per year, remember that, for 4 TB of that cloud storage there. If you wanted to go for iCloud, it's a little bit higher at $9.99 per month for 2 TB of storage. They don't really do the annual deals in the same way, and although you can get discounts and extras added on from your iPhone or your Apple related product, ultimately the price comes to between $200 and $240 per year for 4 TB of storage. Remember, this is $199 with the 4 TB of storage, and you frigging own it. So within 1 year, practically, you have paid the same amount as the cloud that you have had to pay. But unlike the cloud, where when you go on to year 2, you have to keep paying, otherwise you lose all that data, this, it's included, and then the second year, you still own it. Then you can add to it the fact that I can just remove the cable out the back to stop people accessing it. You don't have that level of control over the cloud storage providers. Also, on the cloud, when data's on the cloud, if you click delete, you have to trust that the cloud provider is genuinely deleting the original copy and any of its multi-data center related backups. This, on the other hand, I can click delete, sure, but I can also smash it to 1,000 pieces, something that I can't do with the cloud. And once you integrate and factor in that with cloud storage providers, if you want extended retention policies, some versioning policies as well, ingress-egress policies, which can limit sometimes the amount of data you can download regularly, none of those are a factor here. And all of this is just an unlimited 4 TB storage in terms of access and a price point that is competitive as all hell. This next one's a minor one, and I wanted to include it as a kind of tip of the hat and respect to your Synology, because you can connect and synchronize this with cloud storage providers. If you have a Google Drive or a Dropbox or any of those, a few other third-party cloud providers out there, you can integrate them and synchronize them with this system, and therefore allow that data to be migrated over and still utilize some of that cloud storage space. Why am I giving Synology credit for this? Well, because it would have been very, very, very easy for them to decide to go first party and only allow you to use Synology C2 object storage. They could have done that, and they didn't. And I respect that, because although it's a Synology product that's clearly trying to occupy the space in the market that WD had, more on that later on, I will say right now, I respect the fact that they included support to third-party cloud providers there, and that synchronization between them. This next point will make a great deal more sense when we talk about it in a larger review if you check that out, but this is an exceedingly low power consuming, low space taking and low noise system. A lot of the time when users are looking at moving away from cloud onto private servers or little private storage solutions like this one for hosting their own data, they are concerned about the noise these systems make with the fans, the drives, the internal cooling systems, and also the power consumption given the cost of electricity has gone up, up, up. This is low in every regard. It is absolutely tiny. Again, it's smaller than the WD offering that I mentioned earlier on. It also weighs just over 800 grams. On top of that, it utilizes a great deal of passive cooling, and although you can hear the drive inside, as it is a standard class HOT3300 Synology value plus drive, it means that it's not going to make much noise when it's being accessed either. Overall, for a small footprint device, to have your own cloud within the confines of your home or business, I really like that. Which brings us to that matter I touched on there with WD. Now, WD, for a long, long, long time, occupied the entry-level crowd. It basically owned any part of the market where you looked at running VMs, you're running at Surveillance, Plex Media Server, all that sort of stuff. Synology, QNAP, those sort of brands were starting to occupy that whole tier, and WD was losing a lot of the market share there because their solutions weren't very, for want of a better word, exciting or innovative. Whereas the entry level, the MyBook, the MyCloud Live, the little 1 and 2 bay models, the little tiny systems, WD owned that. Students, they owned it with small content creators. They owned that market share because it was so low that a lot of these brands with their software couldn't bring things down. That simplified and indeed bring those costs down, and they didn't have their own storage included. But a lot changed in the last couple of years. Number one, Synology started rolling out their own branded drives, their own hard drives, their own SSDs, and that allowed them to start looking at bundled solutions, whether you like that or not. Much on that later. But the second thing was, WD in the last 3 years has really shit the bed when it's come to their cloud systems. Notwithstanding, there was malware attacks, notwithstanding firmware updates and lack of regularity on those firmware updates resulted in their systems getting attacked and data deleted remotely by attack vectors, and that already happened. Then in 2023, the My Cloud security breach happened, which made WD, for fears of more data getting leaked, turning off their MyCloud services, and a lot of users couldn't even get in to MyCloud. So they couldn't get into MyCloud, they couldn't get into the systems, and ultimately WD lost a lot of market share and market confidence because of that, which is why this solution is arriving at just the right time, because there's been so many users looking at the entry-level tier and gone, Synology and QNAP sounds really complex and not very user-friendly, whereas this is. It's user-friendly, it's easy, it's affordable, and I would argue it is a better option than the WD, MyCloud, MyBook, whatever alternatives out there. It's solid storage, it's integrated storage, and it's incredibly idiot-proof. But for all of those 5 things that I really like about it, it's not perfect. I'm going to tell you the 5 things that I'm not keen on. A lot of which, full disclaimer before we go into them, if you are a tech head, if you are a little bit more storage experienced, you may agree with me. But I'll be straight with you. If you are entry level, if you are looking at simplified storage, there's a few of these you're just not going to care about. But let's go on with the first thing that I'm not overly keen on. So straight away, do you remember what I said earlier on about this being incredibly user-friendly, easy to get into, easy to set up, and, you know, kind of idiot-proof? Good God, it's basic.
You're basic.
If you are someone that's ever used Synology's NAS solutions with Beestation Manager or DSM, this is going to feel so limiting. The BeeStation software, or BSM, is designed to run a small number of applications exceedingly well, but not give you the ability to run some of the larger extraneous applications and services from Synology. So, for example, and a lot of this is to do with the hardware included, but also choices by Synology. There's no support of write once, read many. So if you are ransomware attacked on this, you don't have that wonderful retention and unbreakable, unwritable data protection that write once, read many provides. Also, allowing up to 8 users to access the data via that shared usage system. It is really, really user-friendly, but 8 is not a very big number. Also, it's only got 1 gigabit Ethernet on the back. Now, I get it. 1 GBE, this is an entry-level box, it's an affordable entry-level, I get it. But even that drive inside, that one hard drive inside, the 4TB Synology hard drive there, this drive can give in excess of 160 megabytes per second, close to 200 with the right block sizes, and the result is that 1 GB network port is going to bottleneck you. Yes, it's still going to be faster than the cloud, but it's still very much a bottleneck. And overall, those rather basic setup options there are just things that are really going to annoy me as someone who has used DSM. So just keep in mind that if you are an experienced DSM user and you do use some of the more colourful applications that it arrives with, you're not going to find any of that here, and you will find this extraordinarily limiting. And harking back to that point about it arriving with a hard drive inside, remember, not only is that a hard drive and not an SSD for the extra performance, which you may or may not feel inside this device, but on top of that, you cannot get it unpopulated. So you can't buy this at 0 TB. You can't get it and pop your own hard drive in. So if you wanted to get 2 TB or you want 8 TB, nope. Now down the line, Synology might roll out larger capacities, but right now you can only get this in 4 TB at the time of recording. On top of that, you can only get it with their drive inside. You can't remove that drive and pop in another one. And when you do install the firmware, unlike Synology's DSM firmware installations for their other systems that don't have any kind of drive specific limitation in terms of capacity or the specifics of the drive, this, on the other hand, when we dug into that firmware, we found that that firmware specifically stated a Synology HAT3300-4T. That means that if you use a third-party drive, there's a good chance that it's not going to work, or that it will partition the drive within the software to 4 TB, so you can't even use a larger drive. And also, there's no hot swapping. I get it, it's one bay. Why would you hot swap anyway? But on top of that, I can't just remove the drive easily. And presumably, if you do encounter a problem, you're going to have to send the whole thing and your data back under that 3-year warranty. I don't like that the drive is locked inside, and I don't like that I can't buy other capacities, and I don't like that I can't buy it at 0 TB and just get the unit on its own. And carrying on with that subject of capacity, it's only available in 1 bay. There isn't a 2 bay that's got a mirror. There isn't a RAID 5 option that's a 4 bay. It's only available in a 1 bay model. That means redundant array of independent disks, or RAID, or a safety net in case the drive dies, is not present. So if this drive inside dies, which drives can do, unless I have got an up-to-the-minute backup, a synchronized backup, a USB backup, that data's gone. And I'm going to have to go down the data recovery route if it's something that is incredibly urgent, a transaction, surveillance, a work file that I've spent the last few hours editing that I didn't want to synchronize with the software live in case it corrupted the file. All of those things, there is the potential, because of the lack of RAID support, for me to lose that data in that small window. Now, again, at the time of recording, this is the only 1 bay option, and they may roll out larger ones. They may roll out a 2 bay and a 4 bay. You know, there is the DS223 and the DS223J out there if I want RAID options, but if I want the simplicity of this, but I still want RAID, something that WD rolled out in their My Book and My Live book, whatever it was called. They did a 1, a 2 and a 4 bay model. It seems weird that Synology rolled out the 1 bay first. I kind of assumed they would have rolled a 2 bay out, but that's something for us to learn in the future. For now, at least as far as this video recording time is concerned, the lack of RAID really hacks me off. And circling back to the subject of the simplicity of that software, I do also want to touch on, I don't like that there isn't an app center. Now, I get it, I want to keep it simple. BSM is not DSM. Beestation Manager is designed to be a great deal more fluid, more user-friendly, and takes advantage of the hardware on offer to get the job done as stably as possible with fluidity and a lack of complexity to hand. I get that. But there's still no denying that I know the hardware inside this can run Synology Surveillance Station. I know it can run Synology Chat, Synology Office, Synology Drive. It can run Plex Media Server. I'm not asking it to run Active Backup. I'm not asking it to run Virtual Machine Manager. But the fact that I know that the hardware inside here, which is identical to that of a lot of the Value series and the J series from Synology before it, can run those apps, but they're not included, bugs me. Now, disclaimer, Synology's BeeStation software for the client tools for mobile and desktop allow that live synchronization of file pinning, very comparable to that of Synology Drive already. And Hyper Backup, some of the elements of Hyper Backup for USB backup and for cloud backup are integrated into the Bee software. I get it, they are included. But I like the customization and the flexibility, and if that is something that you are going to like, then you're not going to enjoy BSM when you could be having DSM. And this final point is one that I think you're not really going to know about until you've actually got the device here on the table. And this is something I think users who moved away from the WD My Cloud platform and onto Synology are going to dislike if they happen to go for one of these. And it's two things. Number one, this system requires you to create a Synology account. You need the Synology account in order to synchronize it with the remote access point so you can access it over the internet. That's not unusual. You needed a Synology account to use Quick Connect. But you could also use Tailscale. You could also use TeamViewer on DSM. This, you have to use a Synology account, which means you have to create a Synology account to remote access this. The second thing, by default, this thing is online only. If you go in to the settings, you can go into the settings and you can enable LAN. You can activate Ethernet connectivity. You can, but it's not on by default, or at least it wasn't when I set this up with the firmware on the day I started testing it out at the end of December 2023. So, is that something that's going to change? Because I don't like that LAN is off by default. Why have I got a problem with that? Twofold. Number one, I don't like that I've got to create an online account in order to access this. That feels very limiting to me. But secondly, do you remember earlier when I mentioned about WD and when they got security vulnerability exploited and data was stolen, I think it was 10, it might be either 6, 10 or 12 TB, I should have researched for the video, was stolen from WD's backend, security auth keys as well. WD, in an attempt to limit the damage, and because they had to identify the vulnerability, turned off the WD MyCloud remote access services while they were assessing the situation internally, and they were offline for weeks. Now, during that period, the WD devices had LAN off by default. You could go into the system and enable LAN, but by default, when you set it up, LAN was turned off, and the result was there were loads of users that had WD MyCloud devices that all of a sudden, even though they were in literally spitting distance of the device, they couldn't access the data. Now, there was a convoluted method to enable LAN access directly with the device that WD had to push out on the quick, but nevertheless, the idea that this system has LAN turned off by default, I do not like that, because there'll be a lot of users that will immediately connect with this device using the remote access BeeStation portal and never think to turn on LAN. They would just assume that it will appear on the LAN, and by the way, it does. It appears on Synology Assistant when you connect it on the local area network, and you can set it up the device that way, but it will still use the remote access portal. And that is just one of the things I don't like. I understand why Synology have done it, keeping it simple, keeping it straightforward, keeping it simplified, keeping it idiot-proof. But I can't say that I like that LAN is turned off and I need to create a Synology account in order to utilize this device. But this has been 5 reasons why I would recommend this device and 5 reasons why I'm not overly keen on it. Maybe some of these will vibe with you. I would say overall, and I mentioned this in the video, I like this. I think there is a gap in the market that WD have sadly dropped the ball on, and this is a great alternative to those in the market. But it's not the perfect solution, and I wish Synology changed some of the base level features of BSM, but it is still effectively version 1, and no doubt we will see bigger, better versions of this. And listening to the court of public opinion, I can imagine that with feedback they will change some of those BeeStation defaults. So maybe in 3, 6, 12 months, this video will be utterly irrelevant because most of my bad points will be null and void. Let's find out, and I'll see you in a year's time. But apart from that, thank you so much for watching. Written review in the description. Free advice section over on NAScompares, along with the Discord and Ask NAScompares forum. Go over to Ko-Fi or Patreon if you want to access our members club for early access in the videos and Zoom consultations and our monthly video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.